My guess is that we all use tablets, paper tablets to take notes, write letters, and of course make a list. Plus you might also have an electronic tablet for checking your email, surfing the net, and reading a novel. Whether you're a low-tech or a high-tech tablet owner, consider making a cover for your tablet. During the second show of So Techie Covers, see how to incorporate a patchwork design, a recycled shirt, or even distinctive embroidery to personalize a tablet cover. So Techie Covers, that's what's next on Sewing with Nancy.
Sewing with Nancy. Celebrating 30 years of sewing and quilting with Nancy Zieman is made possible by Baby Lock, a complete line of sewing, quilting, and embroidery machines and sergers. Baby Lock, for the love of sewing. Madeira, specializing in embroidery, quilting, and special effects threads because creativity is never black and white. Koala Studios, fine sewing furniture custom built in America. Clover, makers of sewing, knitting, quilting, and embroidery products for over 25 years. Experience the Clover difference. Amazing Designs and Class A Needles.
There are numerous patterns, templates, and books that you can use to create covers for your electronic or paper tablets. And I just have a sampling on my board so you can look for what size fits your best use of a tablet. And here are some patterns, and the book obviously offers options and also a template. And I've used this template to create the tablet keepers for this series, whereas your electronic tablets are held securely in with Velcro, and you'll see soon that this is especially elastic, very stiff to hold the electronics in place. And really what you have to do for this is choose some fun fabrics. Don't just choose the same fabric over and over again, but fun fabrics. The die cut areas have been punched out at the various sizes for the, whether it's paper or electronics, and you trace on fabric the size you'd like. And this is just a brief summary of how they're put together. You cut out your fabric, add interfacing, and then back it with a stiff craft interfacing. And in this example, the strap has been sewn to the outer area. I show you in the instructions how to make the strap. But what keeps the tablet, the electronic tablet, in place is that there's elastic, and the elastic is actually a headband elastic that you buy in the beauty section of the store, and just cut it into the strips that are told in the instructions. And then you add a spine, and with some binding added around the edges, holds it in place. The main part of this program is to show what you can do on the outside to showcase your love of fabric and love of stitching. Whether you have an electronic tablet or not, you may also have a paper tablet. I have lots of paper tablets at home and in my office. And these paper tablets can be made for the various sizes. Here's a small one, a little extra tuck in the fabric so that you can place the cardboard section of the paper tablet itself, and you just layer fabric together, and you can see what fun it is to work with fabrics. And then you can also add a closure, a snap closure, instead of a hook and loop tape closure. So it'd be your decision what type of tablet keeper you're going to make, what size you'd like to create. But right now I'd like to show you a tablet keeper that has a slight change to it. It's for paper, and it doesn't have that rounder shape that I had showed you on the example, but it has a wedge shape that goes with the leftover quilt block that I happen to have from the Dresden plate. Now you may not have a leftover quilt block, but if you do, you could apply it, center it, and I'm just going to show you how to make the Dresden shape and then how to vary the shape of the tab closure to make sure the snap is in the right spot. We've done Dresden quilt blocks on Sewing with Nancy in the past. You choose a collection of fabric. You just need kind of small amounts. And you're going to create a 12-inch plate, Dresden plate, and use the favorite template of your choice or pattern of your choice to create the wedges for the template and trace it. As I mentioned, I'm going to be using the size to make a 12-inch fan block, or plate block, excuse me. And you trace on your fabric. You double up, triple up fabric, and trace along the side, flip it over, trace, and then cut. And honestly, I probably just cut all layers at once, all layers for my one quilt block. And I think my ruler slipped behind here. It did, so I'll pull it out and then just cut the layers. Cut out the wedges. Cutting very straightly so you can just see how easy it is to create the wedges. Then after you've cut all the wedges, you need 20 of them for this particular design. Separate the pieces. Easier said than done. Here we go. They're coming apart. And then fold across the top and stitch across the top, chain stitching. And here's a close-up of sewing all 20 pieces. You could sew one right after another across the top. And then after you get your nice little clothesline chain of fabrics, I just separate them and turn right side out. I'll finger press and turn. And somewhere I have, here we go, I have a bamboo creaser. And you want to make sure that you get that seam right in the center. So I'm going to give it a little press. And in the corner of a board, I've marked a 45-degree angle. And I'd insert it so that the angle and the seam align, and then press it flat. And you'll do that for all 20 of the pieces. Meet right sides together of 2 opposite colors and sew from the fold to the edge, and then chain stitch, as you can see, one right after another. After you've chain stitched, keep chaining and adding until you've created what looks like a plate. And here is my fabric to make a large tablet keeper. I've pressed in the center mark and would position my design right in the center. Then you can create the center using your favorite technique. I like to trace the circle on interfacing, fusible side up, trim with a rotary cutter, cut out a circle donut hole from the center, and since this is interfacing, press to the underside, pressing so that we have a nice edge. And then position this into place and stitch. I like to use clear thread, and you can see that here just to stitch down the various elements of that applique. If we look at our tablet keeper, the original design has a rounded edge. Well, I wanted to use this edge so that it coordinated with the element of design. So I made wedges that were longer. And through a series of explanation, you simply place the template onto the design so that you know exactly where the snap should be. I know that seems a little odd, but you want it to close in the same area. And then place a snap on one layer. You're going to make 2 of these. Sandwich right sides together and turn right side out. You're kind of getting the quick version of this, but after you turn this right side out, here we are, you could then top stitch. And before top stitching, you may want to use some of that craft interfacing and just stick it in. Make it a little bit more secure and sew along all the edges. That way that snap will be in the right spot. So here we've designed a tablet keeper using quilt tops, using a wedge instead of a tab for a very creative design. Do you have an embroidered denim shirt that's just hanging in the back of your closet? Give it a new life as a tablet keeper cover. I call this Sew Techie technique an e-cycled cover, embroidery that's recycled. Mainly, the technique to share with you is how to utilize something that's already made and how to showcase the embroidery or the specialty part of the shirt or pants, whatever you're recycling. This was once part of an embroidered shirt because, as you can see, the seaming of the fabric that's in the shirt is limited. You're not going to have a nice long rectangle. You might have to consider putting seams in convenient places. But in order to do that, you first start by doing some auditioning the fabric. And we like to do this by cutting out little windows from paper. On the template pattern, it has the 3 sizes, and we're going to be using the smallest electronic or paper size. It's in the rose color, and notice that the window is 1/4 of an inch interior inside the pink outline. because that's taking away the seam allowances. And that window gives me the opportunity to use the opening to showcase where I'm going to be placing my fabric. You can see that here I'm going to run into the buttonholes, so I'm going to have it kind of like this so that it's a little bit more in the upper corner. And to do this, then we cut a pattern piece, adding a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance so I could seam this piece. Now with a little extra help, I would pin this pattern piece and then cut it out. This dot signifies where the closure is going to be, so you can see that then the emblem would be showcased in the right spot. There isn't a lot of extra width here, so I'd be cutting another piece for the back of it from the other part of the shirt. Perhaps you may have embroidery across the back. Well, on this sample, we were able to use the template as it is and just trace across the back. And then that butterfly is going to be at the spine area, so this tablet keeper would be showcased with embroidery on both sides. You get the general idea. You just have to figure out where that embroidery or that special seaming or the pocket of whatever you're recycling is going to end up, where it's going to end up. Another portion of the tablet keeper is the closure. Rather than making a traditional closure, we use the strap, kind of the strap. It's really the placket area. We cut part of the placket area, fused the strap fusible interfacing to the wrong side, and then you can press and fold and get a nice firm, you have to finish the edge of course, but you could get a nice firm strap to hold your fabric in place, or your tablet keeper in place. Put buttons over the open buttonholes and there you go. Inside is, from the back of the shirt, the binding. The binding, it kind of needs some length, some extra length. Wait till you see what we did here. We cut the binding from the sleeve. This is what was left of the sleeve after cutting the binding strips. We didn't have a lot of fabric here, so rather than cutting 2.5 wide strips of fabric, we cut 1.5 wide strips of fabric for the binding and made single fold binding. Placed it in a bias tape maker, placed the wide end of the fabric and the wide end of the tape maker, and advanced it through, and then would press. As it comes out, you'd use the pressing. So now, instead of having double layers, we just have single layers that would be sandwiched around the edge. So now you know some of the tricks of repurposing, recycling, making it an e-cycled tablet keeper. So easy, so smart, that's the best way to describe the next tablet keeper cover. If you're new to sewing or have great fabrics to showcase, use the easy and smart sew and flip technique to create a tablet keeper cover. Start with a muslin base. After a few quick rows of straight stitching, you'll have a charming cover for your paper or e-tablet. This is the simplest of our creative ways of sewing techie. Just strips of fabric sewn together on a base so that you have a nice firm foundation. The fabrics could be placed, the strips could be placed on a diagonal, or you could vary the widths. The choice is yours. In essence, you're cutting a base of muslin, the size of your tablet keeper, or maybe even just a little bit larger. You could trim after the fact of adding the strips. I've already machine edge stitched one strip. This is about 2 inches wide, 2.5 inches wide, just stitched along the edge. And now I'm going to stitch and show you the stitch and flip technique. Meet the next fabric, right sides together, aligning the edge of the fabric, and then I have my machine set for a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance from the left edge to the needle area, and just stitch, straight stitch following the edge of the fabric. You could attach ribbons, trim, vary the widths as I mentioned earlier. This just gives you the concept of how to work with this. Now after you've sewn one seam, then you need to do the flipping part. Flip the seam to the right side, or flip the fabric to the right side. And here, before I iron, I'll just flip this and then guide my iron to press. And I think you might guess what's going to happen next. I would add the next piece and then stitch and flip. When you're finished, most likely the fabric edges will extend beyond the muslin. Put your pattern or your template back on your created fabric, nice, like it doesn't need to be interfaced, and then you're ready to cut out your fabric and create your tablet keeper cover. Monogramming adds personalization and distinction. Tablet keeper covers provide a great palette for this embroidery. Learn how easy it is to stitch 3 letters of your choice and be guaranteed of the correct placement. The sample that you just saw of our electronic tablet keeper is for the largest of the electronic tablets, and I have it secured in here as I showed you earlier with a headband elastic, and can use it in the standing position or just in the lying down position. Let the hook and loop take closure, hold it up, but that's not what we're talking about really right now. We want to talk about monogramming. Great to make for a guy. This is for my sister, her initials right here, and pretty satin stitching with computerized sewing. Now you can add the positioning with the use of a target sticker, with a template, and another option is to use outline stitches. You can buy just these outline stitches as an embroidery, and I'd like to show you how they work. I already have that outline stitch in my computer, and let's make it a little bit larger so that you can see it. Just right angles. The outer right angle is where the fabric is going to be placed, and then there's a small, medium, and large little letters on the sides that they're sideways, I should say, and that's where we can place the letters for the small, medium, and large keepers. And if you're wondering, what are you talking about? I'll show you what's going to happen. We'll add the letters next. And so I'll just hit the add button, choose an alphabet of your choice. Make sure you like the size of the letters, and I'll just add another same 3 letters, and I'll set these, and they're in the wrong orientation. So since they're all selected, I can just hit the rotate button and rotate them 90 degrees. Now I would like them to be within the L right angle. So I'll just move them a little bit too far there, move it to, back up, 1 stitch at a time here, 1 degree at a time, and we'll see how close I am getting. I'll just enlarge this and see if I'm fairly close. I'm just going to close this and move 1 degree more. And it will be in the L in the right spot, so I don't have to worry about getting it too far to the corner, too high up in the project. So the sewing, the first sewing is done on the stabilizer, and I've already done this. The first sewing is the outline stitches, and the outer outline is where the fabric is going to be placed. The small, medium, and large were for positioning the monograms. You really don't need those, but they stitch out on the stabilizer regardless. And then your fabric. In the first program of this series, I talked about adding fusible interfacing to the fabric. Never forget that. You'll need that. Plus, if you're going to monogram, add a second layer just in the monogrammed area of a stabilizer or second layer of fusible interfacing. I don't like to hoop my fabric. I just position it on top of the stabilizer, aligning it. You can see that outline that was stitched, that I earlier stitched on my stabilizer, and I'll just match it up. Positioning, to me, is the trickiest part of monogramming or embroidering. Letting the machine stitch is the easiest part. So we have it positioned, and I'm using painter's tape, one of my favorite positioning tools. You might have some in your garage or in your basement. And then I'm ready to do the embroidery. And all I have to do is hit the start button. And it will start to do the G, MC of the embroidery. It takes a little bit to get going, and it will outline the stitch and work in the beautiful embroidery. Now, the key to the embroidery is stabilization. We have the stabilizer, we have fused the interfacing on the fabric, and then just a little extra stabilizer on the underside. You really need support. This is going to take, it says, 7 minutes to stitch out. I'll just show you the finished result again. The 3 initials, personalized and distinct. Do you sew or quilt the same type of projects over and over? Did you ever think about getting out of your comfort zone? Today's Nancy's Corner guest decided to take a quilting journey, stretching her quilting skills, in other words, using techniques that were out of her comfort zone. Plus, she encouraged other quilters to do the same. I'd like you to welcome Wendy Butler Burns, a quilting professional, who will tell us about the quilt challenge that she did called Out on a Limb. Welcome to Sewing with Nancy, Wendy.
Oh, thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
Now, you were given a grant to put together a quilt exhibit, and tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I was the recipient of the Jewel Pierce Patterson Scholarship, which was for quilting teachers, and had the opportunity to go to Houston for the International Quilt Festival, and was at market and took classes, and it was for me to have the opportunity to learn some new techniques. But in return, I was responsible for curating an exhibit of work of my own as well as students' work. So over an 8-month period, I recruited some of my students, which is a really short period of time.
Sure.
But we created quilts that needed to be at least 50 inches large. And I decided to come up with the theme of Out on a Limb. And that was it. They had 50 inches, that theme, and just allowed them to kind of take on their own direction and try new techniques and that sort of thing. So it was great fun to have a chance to see where these students would go with that.
And some students, as well as you, took it literally or figuratively. And your first one is more figurative.
It is.
And this is called
Tessellating Wings. And so with that one, I have for myself, I do pictorial work quite often with my applique, but most often representationally. And so I wanted to challenge myself to do something more abstract. So I did that tessellating of that single butterfly wing.
Wow, and the use of fabric. Wendy has not only cottons in this fabric, but you have a touch of velvet.
I do, and that just gives that depth that, it seems to be, works well for it.
And your next quilt has a literal sense.
It does. And so that one, Me and My Shadow, Out on a Limb, was one where, again, sometimes we have the opportunity to tell a little story, and with it, there's some of those ribbons of sort of the flying geese and sort of the log cabins, which was sort of giving my traditional bend where I came from, and then sort of reaching for the sky, sort of in that large sun, moon, there's, collage and all sorts of things.
You have many techniques in that quilt.
Yes.
But then your students, I really like the one where the limb is not the tree limb.
Yes. Yes. So Diane had the opportunity to, as she approached it, she did Out on a Limb, but it's called Fashion in Motion, and she chose her handbags, her purses, to hang on the limb of the arm. And so it was great fun as she told me her idea when we were chatting over the phone. I just chuckled very loudly.
And I love it's dimensional. It reaches out of the border. It has great style to it. And then the Tree of Life.
It is. And so this piece by Karen Carter is one where she had herself wanted to always do something that related to the Mexican theme of the candelabra and that Tree of Life. And she does lots and lots of dimensional work, and it's quite delightful.
It really is. Then the one that's entitled Breast Therapy, that has a really emotional meaning, a healing meaning. Tell us about this.
And that's exactly, I think, where Linda was. She had been diagnosed like 6 years ago and sort of went through all that process and was in remission, and then sort of had a prospective scare. And when I came to her with this, she said it was time for her to be able to kind of visually kind of put some of those feelings that she had dealt with as she worked through, getting through that cancer and such with her piece.
It's amazing what fabric will do, and how people interpret it. It's just, I'm always impressed, because I would have thought of this challenge that it would have been, it's all would be trees out on a limb. That's just what my literal mind thinks of, and so this is encouraging to see. And you did one more with your son, and riding a bike.
Yes. So again, oftentimes as I work with my applique process, I had the opportunity with taking a photograph, and I had this one of my son, and I loved it. Just the sense of determination that he had. And so with that, I kind of worked with monochromatic. I actually did trapunto I'd never done before, and some of the work on his face, using Pentel pencils, and again stretching myself as far as some of those techniques.
Well, Wendy, thanks for sharing this challenge with our viewers and with me, so we too can get out out of our sewing and quilting comfort zone.
You're welcome.
Thanks for being my guest.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us during this two-part series on Sew Techie covers. I hope you're encouraged to try some new sewing, quilting, embroidery techniques that you may use when you're making a cover for your electronic tablet or perhaps your paper tablet. Remember, you can find all things Sewing with Nancy at nancyzieman.com. 52 of the most current Sewing with Nancy programs are available online. You can sign up to read my blog several times a week. I post interesting, I hope interesting, techniques and additional sewing ideas, and hope you'll join us then. Well, thanks for joining us. Bye for now.
Nancy has written a fully illustrated book entitled Sew Techie Covers that includes all the information from this two-part series. It's $14.99 plus shipping and handling. To order the book, call 800-336-8373 or visit our website at sewingwithnancy.com/2603. Order item number BK2603, Sew Techie Covers. Credit card orders only. To pay by check or money order, call the number on the screen for details. Visit Nancy's website at nancyzieman.com to see additional episodes, Nancy's blog, and more. Sewing with Nancy, celebrating 30 years of sewing and quilting with Nancy Zieman, has been brought to you by Baby Lock, Madeira Threads, Koala Studios, Clover, Amazing Designs and Class A Needles. Closed captioning funding provided by Oliso. Sewing with Nancy is a co-production of Nancy Zieman Productions and Wisconsin Public Television.